how is it possible that the environment is so different at Betis compared to Manchester United that we see this complete turnaround in performance? What's your best guess? Bangers only for Antony since swapping red for green. Real Betis have gotten the best out of this Brazilian winger, and our Spanish football expert Phil Kitchen-Melidis with more on what he has done during his 5 months in Spain.
From laughingstock to leader in the space of just 4 months, the Antony redemption story has been absolutely extraordinary to watch in the city of Seville at Real Betis. And can we break it down to something as simple as merely confidence and happiness? Well, that plays a large part. I spoke to Antony last week. We had a sit-down interview for about 10 minutes, and he mentioned the word happiness about 25 times. It's clear that he's delighted to have found a place where he feels like he can express himself, and that's happened at Real Betis. It's not the first time it's happened at Real Betis as well, because Isco, who is one of the best players in Spain this season and perhaps the last season as well, he arrived at Real Betis having not played any football for 6 months. He was an ex-footballer and he's been turned into a brilliant performer once again by Manuel Pellegrini. That's happened with Antony, so I think there is something with the setup with Manuel Pellegrini as well, this calming father figure at the helm of Real Betis, which has helped Antony a lot in terms of how the team is structured. Obviously, he likes to come inside a lot and shoot. When he comes inside, he links up with Isco. Cucho Hernandez drops deep to create more space up ahead as well if he wants to take a player on. So there are tactical nuances to this Betis side which he's fit right into. But I think if we do boil it down to confidence and happiness, and perhaps a lack of pressure, that explains why Antony's been so important. And he will be important against a Chelsea side who will defend really well. So maybe Antony shooting from distance could be absolutely key. We've seen him score some absolute bangers. I think that's the technical name for them this season already with Real Betis. And perhaps that long shooting could be key against a tight Chelsea side.
So Phil, with his theories there and some really good explanations as well as to why Antony has been so good. But isn't that the big question going into this game for Real Betis is how is it possible that the environment is so different at Betis compared to Manchester United that we see this complete turnaround in performance? What's your best guess?
Well, it's an interesting question, very difficult to break down. I think the immense pressure comes from not only the media members, but also the supporters at Manchester United and within the football club in general, that they want to have success. It's almost as if the club demands to have success to get back to where they once were. That anything less than that is unacceptable. And when you are being made fun of by trying things out there on the field and it's not quite coming off for you, eventually what will happen is your confidence will drop, and that's what happened to Antony. The unfortunate part of this whole situation for him, that there was such a large price tag on his head when he arrived at Old Trafford. They spent 95 million to bring him in, which is a ridiculous sum of money. But at the same time, they didn't just bring him in because obviously he looked good on social media clips. They brought him in because he had a talent and they were hoping to develop that talent. Unfortunately for him, however, he arrived at Old Trafford at the wrong time. They were going through developmental phase with coaches, lack of form, lack of confidence, and certainly a ton of pressure from the media members as well. I feel for him. I mean, this guy has gone through an immense amount of pressure, and what people don't see is that footballers, and I can tell you from personal experience, you take all of that pressure and all of the people who are laughing at you and commenting at you, not necessarily just on social media, but you hear everything inside the supporters sections, you hear everything when you're walking down the tunnel. All of those comments you take home with you, and you can't sleep. So to see him being very tearful and obviously describing that he couldn't eat and he was in a depressive state hit very home to me, because I've been in that situation myself. I didn't have a £95 million price tag on my head, and certainly not the pressure of playing at the first team of Manchester United. But that pressure that he went through, he wanted to be successful. He wanted to be the true identity of himself. But unfortunately for him, confidence was lacking, and therefore his performance suffered at the end of the day. And this breakaway to go play for Betis couldn't have happened at a better time, and I don't think it could have gone to a better club.
No question, and Pellegrini has done a remarkable job with him, but I guess the question will be is, looking forward, he is only on loan at Betis. There is this idea that he should stay there and go there permanently. You wonder how the money will work, whether it's a loan, whether it's a transfer, how much money can Betis afford, especially without Champions League football. But how should, if he has to re-enter the market, let's say United say, no thanks, Betis can't afford it. How do the rest of the clubs in Europe now think of Antony? Do you think of him as the player that did not work out in a big club environment at Manchester United, or the talent that we have seen here at Betis?
How has Carlo Ancelotti viewed him? That would probably be the question. Carlo Ancelotti thinks he's good enough for that Brazilian squad. Then I think the rest of the managers will follow what Carlo Ancelotti's believing as well. One of the greatest managers and probably the greatest in Champions League or UEFA history to have ever done it has decided to put him back in the Brazilian national team. The goals he's scored have been exceptional this season, and I think the goals bring confidence to him, but also I think you're recognising there's a smile back on his face and there's a smile around the teammates that are next to him. Isco in particular being very vocal in the media, how important this individual is for Real Betis going forward, how this individual can be to their success. I mean, if you manage to keep a hold of an Antony and you keep this type of Antony that continue to be goal contributions and obviously very fun in front of the supporters, where he picks up possession and he's back to doing these crazy skills and scoring these bangers, as Phil pointed out, you never quite know what can happen at Betis if they add one or two more really interesting pieces. They've got a great manager on the sidelines who was very shrewd and under pressure before that winter transfer market. And I think he took a brave decision getting Antony through the door, as well as Cucho Hernandez, and the amount of money they spent. He's been rewarded for that, and Antony is absolutely paying everyone back. I think I'd like to see him stay. I just don't know if they can afford him. That's going to be the biggest question.
Yeah, the Betis that we've seen from the end of the January transfer window, if that was the Betis team for the whole season, they could have been on the periphery of the title race in Spain. They were so good in the stretch run to the season. But in this Conference League final, how do you rate their chances against Chelsea?
Well, they're a team that are vulnerable. I went to look back at some of their most recent results, and there's a great stat out there for those who like to place wagers on games. Both teams have scored in the last 11 games, and that's a good thing and a bad thing for Betis, right? One, you're coming up against a Chelsea side that will create chances. They're dangerous. Clearly, if you look at the quality in depth, Chelsea have a more in-depth quality of squad, so they should score a goal in that game. But don't ever rule Betis out of this tie. They can create chances, and with Antony in the side, and unfortunately for Cucho, he's not registered to play, so it'll be Bakumbu who gets the opportunity up front, we would imagine. Isco dancing around like he's at a discotheque right now. I mean, they have got a dangerous team, Witty, that can cause all sorts of problems. I wouldn't put it past them getting their hands on this trophy.
Yeah, it would be absolutely incredible considering how big of favorites Chelsea were, even from the quarterfinal stage. Then Betis have found this form, and they're real contenders to win the UEFA Conference League. That game will be on Paramount Plus on Wednesday from 3 p.m. Now, coming up next, there's some big news from the world of Spanish football. Lamine Yamal sticking around for a long time at Barca.